Thriving during the pandemic, and we have AOI, Furnish Construct here, and the reason that they are here is they have been receiving a lot of attention on how they have been approaching this re-entry process with their employees. Creating this leadership team, this specific leadership team, to address what's going on in your organization, how did you determine who needs to be on this team? Do you have 8 people on the leadership team? Do you have 20 people on the leadership team? How did you approach that?
We have leaders all throughout the company, but our core leadership team includes business unit leaders. So we have 3 core business units. And then our HR director, there's a marketing business development person who is very client facing and is focused on the message that's going outside of the company. And then accounting and finance. So that's the core.
How do HVAC systems play in this fight against COVID?
Just general high level, making sure you have enough outside air, fresh outside air coming into your HVAC system is very important. Recycling the internal air with no outside source is not the best way to keep germs and infection down. So making sure that you have enough fresh air coming into your building, and your building engineers can help you figure that out.
In talking with various organizations, it seems like there's so many different approaches that businesses have taken. And for example, working at home. Some businesses, they have taken all of the employees' furniture and sent it to them at home, and they have a nice home setup. Some haven't. Some are kind of in the mix in transition. And so what do you recommend for when you're kind of in the transition, and then again, looking at that productivity piece as employers to equip employees with what they need?
The most important piece in relationship to productivity is going to be the ergonomics, making sure that people are comfortable and sitting at the proper heights. They've got their monitors at a proper height when they're at home. So if that's a stack of books on a dining room table with your monitor on top, that's great. If people can send monitor arms home, that would be preferable. But then a good chair, a dining room chair is probably not the best solution for sitting for long periods of time and being productive. So if you have something that's ergonomic, with height adjustable arms or height adjustability in general, that is going to help make people be more productive at home. Yeah.
I learned very quickly that the dining room table is not a
Right.
good place.
Right.
That wooden chair is I'm only meant to sit in it for about a good 15 minutes.
Right.
So that I had a great appreciation for office equipment
Right.
at that.
And that has a lot to do with productivity. If you're uncomfortable, if you're cold, if you're hot, if you're just physically exhausted because of where you're sitting, your productivity levels are going to go way down. So making sure that you have the right tools at home as well as the office is very important.
So do you have employees kind of cleaning up behind themselves, or?
If you came into our space, not only would you see visual cues as far as signage or wall markers for conference rooms saying this is your maximum occupancy now for this room post-COVID. We're not really post-COVID, but in the times we are living now, you would see rolls of paper towels and disinfectant spray.
How did you determine what your occupancy would be? Because that's a big question right now, and it depends on the type of business it is, or if it's a school. Occupancy is coming up a lot.
So we are able to actually bring everyone back at 100% capacity because we have that much space. There are some organizations that won't have that opportunity and will need to consider work from home and they'll have to probably look at a joint type structure where, perhaps people come in Mondays and Wednesdays, the other group comes in Tuesdays and Thursdays, or a mix.
CJ, from a human resources perspective, do you have any strategies or recommendations?
When you first come back, you're sensitized to it. and you do all those things. But then the thing that we've noticed, if people have gotten back, you get comfortable in your environment and you start to go back to some of your old habits. So having those visuals, those signage, really helps people, and then creating an environment where it is good to remind each other, to be able
And
to
it's
say,
okay. It's okay to say,
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with you being this close to me.
yeah,
And the example that you gave, hey, empowering employees to really be okay with whatever comfort level that they're at.
I think just a simple addition of color on your marketing pieces or your printed whatever you're putting out is big. And we're doing those visual cues and communication pieces based on a 6-foot distance rule. So, and those are based on CDC guidelines.
How do you support employees when they're all at different levels of comfort?
well, we did the color coding bracelets that helps communicate that, and we have posters up that communicates the different levels of what those are. And so that helps in a nonverbal way communicate that. But we've also strongly encouraged employees to talk to their managers and identify solutions. Some of the challenges are, that work from home, being able to work from home and work at the office, because maybe there's tasks that they need to be in the office for a couple days and then work from home, so maybe it's a part-time thing.
This question says, for smaller businesses with more limited resources, what are some basic things they can do to refigure their office for in-person work?
Based on how wide or how big your workstations are, if you have users facing each other, meaning face-to-face, you and I, is to take one user and turn them around and face them the opposite direction. Now, of course, you're going to have to know what's happening behind that person, but to alternate directionally how people are facing is key.
Throughout this process, AOI has been seen as a leader, just in how you've responded. So my question for you in relation to what you're doing in your organization now is, what is next?
Continue being productive and moving forward as an organization, supporting our community and the businesses, our business partners in any way we can, to make sure that we are, going out there and doing what we do best. I mean, finding solutions for everybody.
Many agree the key to successful reentry is communication.
Our entire space is designed to bring people together. We have all company meetings, we have training, we have lots of things that we do that are face-to-face, spending time with each other. And we don't get to do a lot of those things right now. And it does feel like a void. We have started to have some meetings in our conference rooms, and that is we've noticed it's very energizing to be able to do that, but there's just this extra thing that's going on that makes it a little bit different. So as we brought all of our office folks back in and said, you can be in the office, just follow these guidelines, what we're hearing from people is, I miss the connection. I miss being together. I want to be safe, but I miss that piece. And there's some people that have grieved that. That's why they came to work for us, is because of that environment. And it's a tangible environment. We're very proud of it. We've worked hard to create that kind of a working environment.
So how does that look in this COVID-19 environment?
An interesting thing, so I brought on a new employee just as COVID kind of started, and so she's never been in the office, and actually she helps put out a lot of the communications. But one of the things we do is we have a standing meeting every day. We meet and over Teams. So I see her, we talk. I did have her and her boy, they're kind of new to Omaha. I had them come over and we sat out on our back patio and had drinks, and so it was physically distanced, but yeah, it's how do you infuse the culture into someone who's never really been in it. Chris sent me something from the field. We just put out a piece yesterday a hiring piece, and our field manager loved it and commented on it. So I made sure that got back to Amber, our communications specialist, and that's about all you can do is just kind of over communicate and share a lot.
And I think too, acknowledging that it is an important part of the culture, and then finding a way. First and foremost, we got to get the rules down. How do we make sure everybody's safe? That's first. And once we do that, guys, once we know that we can do this and we can work together and do what we need to do to be successful and accomplish our goals, once we figure that out, we are going to figure out how to have fun again. We are going to figure out what it looks like to do those things that we used to do. If we have to have a bags tournament with masks and we all have our own bags, then that's what we're going to do.
We put the fun in dysfunction. You just own the dysfunction and, work around it, have fun.
It sounds like you guys have figured out a way to infuse fun into this environment, which is constantly evolving and not always fun. Adapting to it. Chris, you had mentioned the rules. Like first you had to establish the rules. Mm-hmm. So how do you get buy-in for the rules when everybody doesn't agree with the rules?
First of all, we care about our employees. We care very much about our employees. And so keeping people safe and creating a sense of safety, whether it's physical safety or emotional safety, both of those things are part of our culture as well. If we hadn't educated our people on these are the things that we all need to do now in order to stay safe. We're not making this up. This is the guidance that we're getting from credible sources in our community, from the business. There's a collaborative out there with the business community, the healthcare community, and our community leaders who have put a program together and said, economic recovery and reentry and keeping your people safe depends on you being able to do these things, so here's the things that you need to do. So we adopted those early on.
CJ, you had mentioned that there are no bad ideas. Really? Are there?
Well, there may be some that logistically will not work as easily. But
well, there's no bad ideas when you want to be creative, right?
Right.
When you're
Yes.
starting with a place of creativity, hey, we need to be creative to work our way out of the situation. You have to, I like to sometimes start with the worst ideas because I think that's fun and like, okay, what is the worst idea we could come up with? And then that starts to spark some of the other stuff.
Oh, so you're giving the freedom to offer
Right.
a crazy, because I was wondering how you labeled it the worst idea. So
Yeah.
you're saying it's the worst
Yeah,
idea.
let's just come up with the worst ideas first. Like what's the worst thing that can happen? What's the worst question they're going to ask us? And then the other thing is, it's that improv thing where we just dealt with this yesterday in a group that we were in. It's that yes and. Don't start with no. And I think a lot of people like to start it like, no, that won't work because of this. Well, let's just game it out. It doesn't hurt. We're just talking. We're just,
It says, what can businesses do to aid the mental health of their employees during a time like this?
Let people know that you care about their safety. Have credible resources that you're using to decide what to do. I think also supporting. There's a controversial mandate out there. I think it creates more of a sense of safety to follow those recommendations.
the most important thing is to create an environment of understanding and being able to do some additional education. They're not always going to agree, but there are rules that we have to follow that keep us all safe.
Getting the rules down, like, okay, here's what it takes to make us safe. If we do these things, we'll be safe. Now we can get back to work. Now we can get back to normal. We're wearing masks during normal, but I have found that the more we're able to focus on our normal stuff that we were all doing pre-COVID, and all of those goals and initiatives and strategies and things that we were working through, it is incredibly energizing. And we're able to do it now more effectively because everybody feels safe, and we've put these other things in place. We don't have to worry about that so much because we've got this framework in place that allows us a lot of freedom, and that is energizing and that feels good, and I think that contributes tremendously to mental health.
we have this mask mandate in Omaha right now. That's the situation. And so one of the things I've started doing is matching my mask to what I'm wearing. It's kind of a fun thing. But CJ, you have the mask that I actually desire.
So this is my fun one. And I actually bought this to honor somebody recently, and so it is a fun one. But I've gotten lots of positive comments when I wore it out and about. I was at the grocery store, and somebody stopped me in the parking lot and said, "Hey, where'd you get your mask? My wife is a teacher, and she's looking for something like that." So it was great. So yeah, it's fun to have some fun with masks.
It's for all the divas.
Yes, exactly.
We have another question for you. Do you have any go-to fun activities AOI has implemented during COVID and remote meetings?
Having a little bit of fun with the technology faux pas as they come. You know, there's levity that comes from, you know, we've developed these hand signals for things that are like, we can't hear. We had to figure out what the hand signal was going to be for your unmute, so that we weren't all doing different signals. So, you know, so now that's funny to go like this or like the, you know, we've come up with these little whimsical gestures to mean different things.
What were some of your community resources you use for safety references?
My favorite resource, and CJ's got to get into the weeds a little bit more if there is a potential exposure, and like she's got to have a little bit more detail on some of the things that we're dealing with. But my favorite source, honestly, is the Chamber's We Rise program, because it's comprehensive, it's apolitical, and it ties health and safety to economic recovery. And I feel like we all want everyone to be able to get back to work. We want the restaurants open, we want the schools open, we want all of that. And what that program does is says, if we want economic recovery, these are the things that we have to do. And I feel like it creates a motivation that everybody can relate to.
It's kind of like a basic survival guide.
It's palatable.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could all use a basic survival guide during this time.